Hi everyone. It is the most wonderful time of the year again. Families are putting up their Christmas trees, lights are twinkling in every street, Mariah Carey is blaring out of every shop, while we try not to cry or vomit or both. Because if you have a toxic family, Christmas may just be the most awful time of the year. We're not saying we hate pretty lights and Christmas trees, or even Mariah Carey, although that one's debatable. We hate that it's the time of year when our families get to put on even more unholy dramatics, while we get to take it, fix it, or avoid it, and try to salvage some Christmas cheer. Why do we do this? Why do we put up with our mother's pathetic spitefulness, or our father's vulgar crudeness, or our siblings and in-laws' spineless pettiness? Because it's fucking Christmas, that's why. So brace yourselves, I'm about to debunk the whole damn holiday. I'm also about to tell you why these families are extra insufferable over the holidays and suggest a few different ways to deal with it. But if you don't want to know where presents or Rudolph or Santa's Workshop or Mariah Carey come from, okay, I don't actually know where Mariah comes from, but just skip forward a bit. Christmas as we know it is based on recreating historical traditions that don't even exist. What comes to mind when you conjure up the visions of a traditional Christmas? A beautiful Victorian parlor, brightly wrapped presents under a gorgeously decorated tree with a glimpse of Santa's sleigh as it soars through the night sky? Me too. Alas, you would have been told a very different version of this Victorian tale had you heard it from an actual Victorian. Industrialization was sweeping across the Western world, bringing with it poverty, squalor, and misery. Private enterprise was one ticket out of the workhouse, and it was high time Christmas came out of hiding and earned its keep. Even though Christmas celebrations, Saturnalia, Yule, etc., date back to ancient Rome and were widely and wildly celebrated until the Middle Ages, festivities were still deeply rooted in hedonistic pagan feasting, fornicating, and general debauchery. So Oliver Cromwell and his party pooper Puritans up and banned Christmas in 1647. By the time the Victorian era of the 1830s came along, religious institutions were more firmly established, a little less insecure, and Christmas was back on the menu. Enter department stores, printers, magazines, Coca-Cola, and of course, Charles Dickens. A Christmas Carol did a lot to conjure up the perfect Christmas to ease troubled times and minds. Anti-hero Scrooge mends his mean and miserly ways and brings a Merry Christmas to all to the Cratchit family and the heartbreakingly unforgettable Tiny Tim. What no one tells us, however, is that Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol as a pamphlet to spread awareness about the shocking conditions of sweatshops and child labor, and that he spent the rest of his life fighting the plagiarism and the rewrites of the stories and plays that depicted none of it. Christmas trees, presents, and decorations were never even mentioned in the novel. Wrapping paper was only invented in 1917. Christmas tree ornaments only became popularized by women's magazines in the 1950s, and Rudolph only came onto the scene when Montgomery Ward commissioned the glowed-up reindeer for the world's first coloring-in books in 1939. Gift-giving was and still is on a marketing rampage. Magazines introduced the idea that people showed their love by giving presents and spread that gifts secured family bonds and reinforced social attachments. Harper's Magazine campaigned that love is the moral of Christmas. What are gifts but proof and signs of love? Coca-Cola was responsible for most of the fuss around Santa Claus. The image of the fat, generous old darling as we know him today was commissioned in 1931. The legend of jolly old St. Nick did much to replace the image of the tycoon running sweatshop full of miserable little children with the magic of Santa in a workshop full of happy little elves. As industrialization spread, parents had no time to carve or sew homemade toys like they used to. Toys were now produced in factories, ready to sell en masse, and stores had found a way to sell them fast. The whole point of inventing a Christmas based on non-existent traditions was to make the world falsely nostalgic for a time of innocence and simplicity, and the childlike notions of wonderment and delight. So that's exactly where their merry marketing sites were aimed, and how you can see why it works, especially when your family isn't so merry. Santa promised that all good children deserved presents. Rudolph, teased and excluded, became the respected leader of Santa's sleigh. Books told stories of awful grown-ups coming to their senses and transforming into wonderful grown-ups overnight. Movies showed troubled families repairing all the hurts of the past and becoming loving families over one turkey dinner. Ads, shops, malls, the very streets broadcast how one magical day could change bad people into good, terrible situations into ones of hope, and sad families into happy ones. It's no wonder we fall for it, and it's no wonder it's so easy to exploit. Most toxic parents love Christmas. They get to fool their families, friends, and neighbors with their fake displays of perfection, generosity, and goodwill even more than usual. The whole act even comes with its own perfect cover story, all tightly wrapped and neatly tied with a big Christmas bow. It is the one time of year they can brag, boast, and parade and make people feel small, insignificant, and indebted to their heart's content, because it's also the one time of year they know they'll get away with it. They're not bribing their families, they're spoiling them. Those aren't strings they're attaching, they're ribbons. Those aren't alarm bells you're hearing, they're sleigh bells. Where's your damn Christmas spirit? Christmas traditions don't inspire toxic families to behave with goodwill towards man, woman, or children. They are twisted, warped, and then added to the manipulative repertoire that is the toxic family's bullshit act. Gifts are used to pit siblings and grandchildren against each other. Outings and vacations are used to incite exclusion and jealousy. The food and drink they dish out buys even more obligation and indenture. Even their charity work and donations are done purely for status and esteem. There's nothing charitable about it, but don't you dare point it out, because it's all in the name of Christmas spirit. It's also the time of year when the social stigma attached to anyone who doesn't want to spend the day with family mutates and multiplies. Declining lunch with toxic family on a normal day is risky, but missing Christmas lunch? Unforgivable. Toxic parents know full well that their children will put up with near constant demands, harassment, and abuse to avoid incensing their families or face the tears, tantrums, and guilt trips if they don't. So the parents will use and abuse them at will, and their children will shop, wrap, fetch, carry, cook, clean, placate, and mediate until they drop. If you have decided not to attend your family Christmas this year, and the weight of it all is getting to you, try a little reframing. Focus on what you don't miss rather than what you think you're missing out on. I don't miss my mother's relentless spite and constant insults on my weight or my hair or whatever else she could manage to focus on. I don't miss her murderous glare if I dared even to come out of the kitchen, or her vicious comments about my husband. I don't miss her sickly smirk as she showered my sisters-in-law with gifts they had no use for, but knew I would have loved. And I certainly don't miss all the ways she tried to exclude me from spoiling my own child. I don't miss frantically trying to keep the peace through my father's cruelty and vulgarity and my in-laws' vindictive arguments. I don't miss the hurt and the exhaustion and the utter defeat of having a family who dangled one happy day and used it to break me for a whole month. Remember also that you're not alone. The most recent stats show that about 27% of Americans are estranged from at least one family member, and I'd hazard a guess that a significant portion of the remaining 73% don't experience the perfect family Christmas either, despite what their Facebook and Instagram pages have to say about it. If you've seen me before, you'll know that I've spent enough time on parenting groups to show that every picture they post of their children's smiles hides a million of their tears. And don't fall for the pity people prattle about being alone for Christmas. I personally adore a quiet Christmas, chatting with my little family through the movies we're supposed to be watching. And I'm not above telling you that I wear a smirk of my own after my friends have been to check on me on Boxing Day, full of stories of their huge celebrations, with family flying in from everywhere to join in the Christmas cheer. After an eggnog or two, the stories start to drift to the fights and the arguments and the mess and the waste and the thank God Christmas is only once a year. But it's sweet of them to check if I'm the one who got through Christmas okay. So start your own traditions. Do something quiet and peaceful or cool and interesting. If you're religious, you already know that overindulging and bragging about it is not what Christmas is all about. So do some volunteering at your nearest shelter or your kitchen. Even if you're not religious, I still can't think of a better way to spread a little cheer and shut toxic people up at the same time. Do something fun and relaxing, something that is what Christmas is all about. Peace and joy. You've just got to find it in what matters. And if you do decide to go to your family Christmas, go knowing that you're not going to find it trying to turn a toxic family into a happy one, even if it is just for one day. So, to my family, friends and followers, and even to Mariah Carey, wherever you are, ere I drive out of sight, happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.